Hello everyone! A while ago I made a post about this $11 controller, and for that price I definitely needed to pick one up. It's been a while since I had it in my hands, but today we'll finally check it out. The box is super simple and it's not bad for the price you pay. And when we take it out of the box, wow, this design looks stunning. I'm very impressed that we get such a nice design for a controller that costs $11. And when turned on, it looks even better. The LEDs shines in a rainbow pattern. But with the bright lights, you can't see it very well. Let me turn some of them off. In the back, it has 3 buttons to adjust the lights and the vibration intensity, and one to enter the pairing mode. Pressing the light button lets you cycle between all of the different colors available. Sadly, I have to say that the face buttons are not good. They're hard to press and very loud. It won't sync flat with the shell, which is a good point, but it gets very tiresome when you need to mash buttons repeatedly. The shoulder buttons are good, and the trigger seems to be analog triggers. They have a pretty good travel distance and no click to it. We'll check it out in the test later. The stick's body is made of plastic and we don't have anti-friction rings here. The D-pad has a good resistance, it's not as hard as the buttons, and it has a pivot in the center. Also, the D-pad 2 won't sync too flat with the shell. For the back buttons, we have mouse switches. Pressing these buttons feels just like pressing the buttons on a mouse. And the vibration, pairing button, and light adjustment are clicky buttons. And we have a USB-C port for charging. And the plastic has a texture around the grips. Now let's jump to the PC for the first tests. And here we can see that sadly we have dead zones in the analog sticks. The circularity test though is perfect. And on the D-pad test, the diagonals are very hard to activate. You can activate the diagonals, but it will require extra force. And the triggers feel analog, but the response is digital. The travel distance is not very long, and it doesn't feel that bad. You can activate turbo for the face buttons. And it also has a toggle mode. You can adjust the turbo speed too. The button layout is the Switch layout, but you can swap to the Xbox layout with this combination. This other combination lets you reverse the analog sticks and D-pad. Holding the back buttons with the minus button lets you use the Remap function. And when used with the plus button, you can record macros. On the polling rate test, it is pretty slow, with 100 Hz. On the Switch, it has a Wakeup function. And it also has motion controls. Additionally, when holding the light button and pressing on the analog sticks, you can turn on and off the LEDs individually. The right stick disables the LEDs on the controller, and the left stick disables the LEDs on the sticks. Moving to the teardown, I decided to look for hidden screws under the sticker, and when I unpeeled it, jokes apart, I think this is just a rebrand and nothing to worry about. There are only 6 screws on the sides of the controller and no hidden screws. On the back of the shell, we can see that the triggers have plastic pivots, which isn't very durable. The battery has 1000 mAh, and the mouse switches are UCIA. And even though the triggers have a digital response, in the hardware they are analog triggers. These are analog membranes. You see that the harder I press, the more contact the membrane makes with the board. So what happens here is that the controller takes this analog input and converts it into a digital input through software. On the front shell, the face buttons are not swappable, and the D-pad seems okay. Probably it needs some adjustments in the membrane of the D-pad to have better diagonals. As expected, we have cheaper potentiometer-based sticks. The contacts on the D-pad and face buttons are regular too. And for my final thoughts, it is what it is. It is a cheap controller. They have made an outstanding job at the design and usability of this controller. But the fine details that makes this controller comfortable to use are not present. And that's a shame because this controller looks so good. I don't recommend this controller if you want to use it every day as your daily driver, but if you want to have a secondary controller to play with a friend occasionally, or if you want a spare controller to give to a little brother or a cousin, or anyone that might break your expensive option, this is a good deal. That's it for this review. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.